So you want to be a college football coach? Really? Welcome to the Voice of College Football, breaking down the game you all love each and every day with you best discussion, debate, and analysis. All right, we have seen a departure of college football coaches to the NFL or Nick Saban to retirement. Of course, Nick Saban dropped a lot of clues and hints over the last several years about the changing landscape of college football, NIL, transfer portal, to say, do I really want to be involved in this? This is not headed in a good direction. It's not really healthy for the game itself, for the fans, the alumni, everybody involved, and even, in a sense, the student athletes themselves. Different discussion. Jim Harbaugh, just a couple weeks ago, decided, hey, I'm leaving Michigan to go to the NFL. Now, much of that had to do with accomplishing his mission at the college level of winning a national championship, and now scratching that itch on the NFL level where he came oh so close to a Super Bowl championship. Still, considering what Jim Harbaugh has been through, whether earned or not over the last several months, consider the college game versus the NFL game. Jeff Hafley, Boston College head coach, leaves a Power 5 job in which he elevated the program at least this past season to 7-6 in a bowl victory, to become a defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Now, he could possibly, if this is his goal, elevate from a coordinator position in the NFL to a NFL head coaching position, and Hafley did have experience at the NFL level. But it got me to thinking something that I have talked about and answered phone calls on for years now. So let's put it all together. The college game versus the NFL game. Which would you rather coach? To me, I've said it many times, it's not close. All right, if you're an NFL head coach, you've got a general manager, you've got a player personnel director, you've got a complete infrastructure there to support you. They build the roster. They work the NFL draft. The only thing I would want is a voice. I would like to be able to state and have my opinion weighed heavily. I would want to be in the conversations. But in regards to the formula and all that it includes, that is a massive undertaking. And the NFL head coach has that support system. They don't have to deal with that. They don't have to deal with the salary cap. That's all done for them. Of course, they are basically given a roster of football players. Okay. Besides their media obligations as a NFL head coach, they get to coach football. They select their staff. They lead, guide, and direct that staff in how they want them to approach players. They watch a lot of film with their coaching staff, with their players. They build relationships with the players. They have to be a leader of men, grown men. So that's an important difference we'll get to. They also, of course, have to be great managers of egos and building relationships, which any manager, any leader should have to have those skill sets, and that's very important and probably prominent. Number one skill set, communicating with people, dealing with people, relating to people, influencing people. But other than that, it's football. Watch film, go to practice, work out your schemes, strategize, in-game adjustments, building up toward game day, coaching in the games. I'm not saying it's easy, but be an NFL head coach, absolutely. And if one of your players does something stupid, like beats a woman, has a DUI, deals drugs, anything moronic, guess what? You don't have to deal with it. Yes, you have to take the hit of losing possibly one of your best players and figuring out how to coach up your backup player and suffering that loss on the field. But the headache of dealing with that situation, the NFL deals with it. They fine the player, they suspend the player, they hand down the punishment, they deal with it. The NFL deals with it. You don't have to deal with it as an NFL head coach. Now, let's contrast that to the college game. Even before NIL and transfer portal, I thought there was no comparison between the two. Coach in the NFL, absolutely. In the college game, just take recruiting. Oh my word, the pandering and pleading and chasing and begging of a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds. I couldn't deal with it. Are you kidding me? Unless you have built up a legacy, the likes of a Nick Saban, an Urban Meyer, somebody like that, that has some pull, some weight to the point where when they contact an athlete, it means something and the athlete responds. Those people are very few and far between. Most, even prominent head football coaches at big universities, big schools with success, they are pandering and chasing 17 and 18-year-olds who may commit to you one day and flip 3 weeks later. And then you got to continue to try to maintain the relationship because you know what? They may flip back to you. Oh my word. And besides the anguish of dealing with that portion of it, and that hit to your self-esteem would be the grind. It is a grind to be a head football coach in college. And for the entire staff. For the entire staff. I've heard all sorts of stories, both personally to me, told to me, and just that are out there online and on video from head coaches and assistant coaches that talk about the grind of winning, let's say, a conference championship the first Saturday of December, not being able to celebrate that with the players. Maybe for 5 minutes, you do your little dance in the locker room, and then you know what you're doing? You're hightailing into the airport to jump on a plane to recruit because National Signing Day is in 2 weeks. And you've got to forget about that big conference championship game win. You're back to recruiting. It's nonstop, as Kirby Smart reminds us all the time. It's 24/7, 365, and that's why he's as good as he is in bringing in top-level recruits. It is a grind, and it's player camps all the time throughout the summer. May and June in particular are loaded. When we think that, okay, spring practice is over, they don't start summer camp until August. No, they're going to camps, and they're preparing throughout the week for that weekend's camp. And Nick Saban used to say it all the time. And there have been documentaries, let's say on the SEC network probably, where they have shown Nick Saban having a cookout with his players, with his coaching staff, and that's on Independence Day weekend, July 4th weekend. He gets about 4 days there in between all the craziness of recruiting and everything else. He gets that much of a respite, and the other coaches are the same way. When they go to media days, you'll hear them tell the stories. How did you spend your summer, coach? Well, it was nice to get away for 3 or 4 days. We went out to the beach. We went to our lake home for 3 or 4 days. And but besides that, I was still texting recruits the entire time I was there. What kind of life is that? Goodness gracious. And then consider, once these players are signed, you got to keep them clean. Are they going to class? And yes, I understand that we believe in this day and age that these football players just play football and they don't need to do anything else and they're paid to play and all of that. No, most of them are legitimate students that go to class. Got to make sure they go to class. Got to make sure that they're keeping their grades up to a certain requirement, that they stay eligible. Got to keep them clean, keep them off the streets so they're not doing anything stupid. Not messing around with women, not beating women, not getting DUIs, dealing drugs, all that other stuff. 105 of them at that age. That's a nightmare. Then you've got the NCAA to deal with. And much of what the NCAA does, this won't be a popular statement, is actually legit in disciplining these schools. However, a ton of it's petty. You got to make sure, did we dot our I's and cross our T's? Did we give somebody a ride somewhere that we shouldn't have? Did we give them a school logo on a notebook that we shouldn't have? Did we have lunch with somebody we shouldn't have? Just dealing with the NCAA and making sure that everything meets compliance. Nightmare. Want no part of that. All right. Now, that is traditional college football coaching. Now, here in the last 3 years, what do we have? We've got the NIL and we got the transfer portal. And we are now seeing at places like Florida and Tennessee and Florida State, NIL rules and guidelines, restrictions are being dealt with by the NCAA. That aside, even if you're doing it the right way, you've got to deal with collectives and the whole angle of the pay-for-play system that is off the rails and completely inconsistent and is not in the form of the expected NIL anyway. Now let's talk about the transfer portal, because this is a pain in the arse for these coaches. It's got to be. It's unbelievable. We are still sitting in the transfer portal to a certain extent because of all these coaching vacancies. So the transfer portal was for a certain amount of time after the season, but it's been extended by 30 days and 30 days and 30 days and 30 days because there have been job openings at Alabama, then Washington, then Arizona, then San Jose State, now at Michigan and at Boston College. So the transfer portal never stops. It basically never stops. And so what does this really require a head coach to do? Well, he's got to continue to recruit his own locker room. He's got to make sure those guys are happy before he does anything else. And then it's up to him and his coaching staff to become familiar with the rest of the nation. I have heard from college football coaches down through the ages say, I don't know about anybody else's team. I could care less about anyone else's team. They're asked about other teams across the country. And you know what they would always say? I don't know. They must be really good. I'm sure because so-and-so is a great coach and their record's 8-1. I'm sure they're doing a great job, but I don't know anything about them because these coaches have always been hyper-focused on their own program, their own team. That's all they care about. And then the opponent that week. That's all they care about. Now they're in a situation where transfer portals wide open, 1,500 players. Well, guess what you got to do? Figure out which of those players you want on your team. So then you got to watch film and have your coaching staff watch film. Look at the stat sheet and say, well, this dude caught 45 passes at UTEP for 800 yards. Is he any good? Well, we got to scout him. So now there's a whole level of other scouting that needs to be done on the collegiate level. And then on top of that, once you determine we would like to target these guys in the transfer portal, guess what you're doing? You're recruiting all over again. So in addition to recruiting your high school players, you are now having to recruit college players. And they have to visit campus, and you got to sell them, pander to them, plead with them, come play for us. No thank you. No comparison. I'll coach the NFL any day. Then on top of this, the highest paid coaches in the NFL include, I know he's no longer with us in the NFL, Bill Belichick, $25 million. Now, he's a legend. Throw that one out. But you've got Sean Payton. You've got Pete Carroll at $15 million. Sean McVay's at $15 million. Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh at $12 million. On the low end, Zach Taylor, Robert Saleh, they are at $4 and $5 million. So you're going to make at least $4 or $5 million, even if you're coaching a 4-win football team in the NFL. And I've always said on the flip side, this is my one argument for college football, is that the NFL spits out coaches. You could be really good at what you do. You go somewhere, you go 6-10, 6-10, bye-bye, you're gone. But it's getting like that in college football as well. Look at the tenures of these coaches in college football. If they don't win immediately, bye. At the collegiate level. So we're seeing a range in the NFL from about $4 or $5 million at the bottom all the way to roughly $15 million. Nick Saban made just under $12 million this past year. Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart in that range. Ryan Day at $10 million along with Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly. On the low end, 133 head coaches. Most of these coaches in the MAC and the Sun Belt in the $400,000 to $600,000 range. NFL versus college coach, which would you rather do? I'm going to the NFL. I'll see you there. In the meantime, please like the video, comment, and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football.